Tuesday, December 19th. The Admiralty informs the British government that Commandant Charles Goodeve has found the solution to the problem of the German magnetic mines. The system, called degaussing in honor of Carl Friedrich Gauss, one of the first investigators in the field of magnetism, involves demagnetizing ships through the use of an induction coil around the hull. A euphoric Churchill tells Roosevelt of the discovery, but in order to keep it a secret, he orders that every time a ship is sunk by an ordinary mine, it is to be announced it was a magnetic mine. The engineer Mikhail Ilyich Koshkin presents his new design for the A-32 tank to the Soviet Defense Committee. The new tank is to replace the A-28, which is performing so badly in the war in Finland. From now on, it is to be known as the T-34, in homage to the year when the development of Soviet armored forces began. Germany launches the Atlantis, a merchant ship originally called Goldenfels, which, after being totally renovated, becomes a camouflaged cruiser with 14 guns and 4 torpedo tubes, which turns into one of the most dangerous pirate ships. Wednesday, December 20th. Hans Lansdorff, the commander of the Graf Spee, wrapped in a war flag of the Kriegsmarine, shoots himself in the head in his room at the Buenos Aires Naval Arsenal. His body is buried in the La Chacarita Cemetery. A team of British divers searches the German battleship to try to recover the navigation instruments for analysis. Heavy fighting continues between Soviet and Finnish forces in Suomussalmi and Salla, with victory swinging one way and then the other. Although the Allied countries have announced they are preparing to help the Finns, the situation is similar to what happened in the case of Poland, and intervention does not materialize. An open confrontation with Stalin's Soviet Union would take the war in unforeseen directions. For their part, Sweden and Norway maintain their neutrality in the conflict. In Poland and the other territories occupied by the Nazis, the process of laying the foundations of the Thousand-Year Reich continues. The Germanization of part of the population and the final solution of the Jewish problem are the main objectives of the future German Empire. In the Sea War, the Swedish merchant ship Mars sinks after colliding with a mine laid by U-22, commanded by Karl Heinrich Jenisch. Thursday, December 21st. Stalin is officially 60 years old. Hitler sends a telegram to the Kremlin wishing him a long life and lots of success in leading his country. The Soviet leader replies, saying the friendship between their two peoples is sealed with blood and will therefore be lasting. Tens of thousands of ethnic Germans continue arriving to the territories dominated by the Third Reich from the Soviet Union and the Baltic countries. The Nazi authorities distribute them between the occupied areas, integrating them as labor in preference to Poles and Jews, among others. Himmler and his demographic planners estimate that in Poland alone, the number of people that must be deported is 8 million, which will cause the state serious transport problems. In Finland, resistance to the Russian invasion continues. Stalin orders General Voroshilov to put right the strategic mistakes that are making victory impossible. In the Sea War, U-21, commanded by Fritz Frauenheim, sinks the Swedish merchant ship Karl Henkel, and U-46, captained by Herbert Soler, sinks the Norwegian merchantman Rudolf. Friday, December 22nd. The Argentine government, responding to the call from the League of Nations, offers material help to Finland, the first Latin American country to do so. Meanwhile, in the area of Suomussalmi, an important railway center, the Finnish army manages to detain the reinforcements coming to the aid of the surrounded Soviet 163rd Division, which attacks in desperation due to the intense cold and the shortage of food. The Russians lose thousands of men in the heavy fighting. The British Admiralty announces that Royal Navy ships have intercepted 87 merchantmen heading for the Third Reich since the start of the conflict. Although it is not a high number, it is hoped it will have a strong impact on the German economy. In France, the Prime Minister Edouard Daladier announces a big increase in defense spending, which will have repercussions on the productions of armaments and the strengthening of the Maginot Line and other strategic points in the country. There is no let-up in actions by German submarines, and U-61, commanded by Jürgen Osten, after laying a number of mines close to the British coast, sinks the British merchant ship Griefeval. Saturday, December 23rd. Finnish forces of the 27th Regiment attack the Isthmus of Karelia, but the resistance put up by the Soviet troops, supported by tanks, halts their advance. In Suomussalmi, the Soviet 44th Mechanized Division remains at a standstill 10 kilometers from the positions of their comrades in the 163rd Division, who are resisting Finnish attacks with hardly any food or ammunition left. The humiliating defeats suffered by the Red Army in Finland give Hitler an idea of the military strength of the Soviet Union, and German military analysts draw the conclusion that Soviet forces are very inferior to those of the Third Reich. The disembarkation of Canadian troops continues in Britain. Meanwhile, the British Foreign Office receives an official protest signed by a number of South American governments condemning the Royal Navy's boarding of German merchant ships and its action in the River Plate. The British supply ship Dolphin and cargo ships Glen Albin and Promotive go down victims of mines laid by U-22, commanded by Karl Jenisch, and U-31, captained by Johann Habekost. Sunday, December 24th. Hitler visits troops stationed on the western border to celebrate Christmas. At the same time, the security forces of the Third Reich continued to commit atrocities in Poland. In Waver and Anin, two small towns close to the river Vistula, 150 prisoners are shot, while another group is forced to dig their graves. In the Winter War, Stalin's army is faced with the surprising resilience of the enemy forces, which are capable of carrying out a counteroffensive in the area of Suwalmasalmi. North of Lake Lagoda, in temperatures of below 40 degrees, the tenacious Finns, under the orders of Colonel Halmar Salasvuo, manage for the first time in the conflict to push the Soviet troops back to the other side of the frontier, although by nightfall, the intense Soviet artillery fire forces them to withdraw. Later, Salasvuo will be promoted to general for his skills as a strategist. In the Vatican, Pope Pius XII calls for peace in his Christmas message and defends the right to freedom of all the world's countries.